A long shot gave Banks no trouble. Banks alert as usual.
When I see what's happened to the game, our game has suffered by it, not just through these incidents, but through the actual European games when we were banned, and also the national team not being able to pick up the mantle because of the knowledge that we've lost, not being able to play in Europe. And I just hope that you can see a little bit of sense here, because we want a really good Nations Cup here in England. We don't want the problems, and then we hope that when England do well, and we really are, everybody be rooting for them, that we can then go on to qualify for the next World Cup, and maybe in 8 years' time we then can stage a great World Cup final here in England.
I had concerns when I heard we had Euro 96. I mean, anyone who knows anything about the recent history of support for England would have to be concerned.
Usually it's just our club, about 30 of us there, who were there every game, like. Just a mob who follow the lads who like a drink, and it'd be frisk if there's out going on. Punch up with the other lad. It's a laugh. I bet the coppers are dreading England-Scotland, or... I see me getting locked up against Scotland. They're the only team who can come close. I'd have thought Germany.
Who is the main firm in Europe?
It's difficult to say, but I mean it will be an English firm, because they have the best organization and the top boys.
There are no safe international football tournaments in Europe in that sense anymore.
When England last staged a major football tournament, there was no crowd segregation, no closed-circuit television cameras, and no mass police presence. There didn't need to be. In 1966, the passion, patriotism and commitment of the home supporters helped England to beat the world. 30 years later, when UEFA announced that England would host the '96 European Championships, the image of football and football supporters had changed dramatically.
We hate each other, really, basically.
There was now the unacceptable face of football, trouble on the terraces.
You want to see your team win, get them 3 points. But if you start getting hassle, either from the away supporters or players, something will blow.
Well, you've got 2 choices. You either lie down and get kicked, or you fight back. And you fight back.
has been crowd disorder at football matches since the game was invented. But because it wasn't easy for supporters to travel, such incidents were confined to local derby games or big events. The first cup final at Wembley in 1923 between Bolton Wanderers and West Ham United saw too many fans getting into the stadium with or without tickets and spilling onto the pitch. Constable Scory, on his famous white horse, had to coax back over 125,000 northerners and southerners before the game could start. Supported literally from the touchlines, Bolton went on to win 2-0. '66 saw feuds between mods and rockers spill onto football terraces as football grounds became the perfect arena for rival tribes of football supporters. Youth was revolting, and the '60s boom saw travel become easier and more affordable. Home fans began to defend their manor from the marauding away fans.
It's no new thing, is it? It's just a bunch of lads, working class lads, having a drink and what you looking at kind of thing, isn't it?
Just having adults, isn't it?
They blow it out of all proportions, really.
Everybody who's fighting, like in mobs,
once you go to court, they make out as though it's us, hairy animals, smacking old women with flasks of tea, you know what I mean? Well, that's not right at all. It's lads exactly the same as us, under another banner, if you like, another team.
As trouble became more frequent, so did the need to settle old scores. It was just as important for the fans to win the contest on the terraces as for the team they supported to win the match on the pitch.
There's maybe another 9 or 10 clubs with like 10 lads everywhere, eh? And like, you get to know them kind of, eh? You go in a pub round the ground, you see like Lee and that from Oldham, or a few lads from Darlington or whatever who you've been away with before, eh? And like, you know that the good lads are not going to run and leave you and that, eh? So you just have a good laugh, get the drink and then have a frisk.
So you get these quick attacks. Then in the ground sometimes, like you say, you'll get spontaneous attacks, you'll get flashpoints. And usually the violence isn't quite as bad in terms of the effect, because there's too many bodies, for want of a better word. You get a lot of Glaswegian stuff, you get a lot of headbutting.
We've had Sunderland in the FA Cup a couple of times. We've managed to get a replay both times, and both legs of them have been fairly spot on, like. Enjoyed ourselves. You can't help but get a frisk at Blackpool, like, it's full of lads. Like, light lads. We had to go with Chef Wednesday and Doncaster and some Blackpool lads, eh? It's alright, a few of the lads ended up on court for the free hour, that, but didn't go down, did they? No. Bolton a few years ago, we got run across the car park, but the year before we done them all hour. Used to phone through and tell us where to meet them. Like Wigan, we had a good do, because they phoned, we had it arranged. We met out the way in a pub just on the outskirts, and we had a good off there, like, ran them actually.
The victim would be left with a calling card upon them. Congratulations, your head had just been rolled by the Chelsea headhunters, etc. People thought it was the press, it wasn't, it happened. It was there, you had Chelsea, the service crew Leeds, you had Bushwhackers Millwall, you had Skull Patrol Portsmouth, like converted to the 657. You even had Lunatic Fringe of QPR doing it.
We believe as a football entertainment industry, we're entitled to police protection and police support the same as any member of the public is entitled to protection against thieves and burglars or whatever form of criminal activity.
The Roman chariot races saw the first trouble between rival supporters. 2,000 years later, young men in Britain were forming hardcore crews to collectively test their newly found manhood at football matches. They were ready to react to spontaneous events and kept their own league record of notoriety. Startled onlookers referred to them as rowdies, then scum, then hooligan, after the name of an Irish robber who terrorised Victorian London.
The hooligans have within their system a hierarchy, and they usually call the leaders of each group a general. Now, within the groups, they usually have two distinct factions. That's the junior ones who are still to win the spurs, and the senior ones. And it's usually the junior ones that commit the violence and the senior ones that direct it.
3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon often saw another kind of kick-off. When 2 tribes went to war, a 3rd tribe, dressed in an all-blue strip, intervened to keep public order.
Turn right, over. Right, good. Where is he? It's a bloke here, isn't it?
This is him. He wants to come back towards the front. There's a bloke, old boy with glasses.
Yeah, tell me first.
Right next to the bloke in orange t-shirt.
That's it. Go on.
Come on, keep
Yes, keep walking down a little bit further.
Keep coming, keep. You're going to fall over. Got him. He's there. That's him. Right.
Where's the person right in front of you? Here's the man. If you put your finger, your hand on his head.
That one.
No, just your left. Your left.
Elbowing him.
No. That's it.
The police turned into camera crews to gather intelligence on known troublemakers. And £20 million was spent as Big Brother watched you watching football. New laws were passed to bring those captured on camera to book and ban them from the game. A minority were making life difficult for the majority, as the police treated all supporters with suspicion. Attendances for questionable entertainment fell. The situation reached fever pitch. Hooliganism was to be one of Margaret Thatcher's greatest exports. England brought the game of football to the world and gave them football hooliganism too.
You've got a sense of empire, you've got a sense of we'll take that as ours, you've got the Falklands in 1992, which is largely the same thing. I mean, the Falklands was an example of football hooliganism on a grand scale, wasn't it, really? Then you've got, take that, let's go out and catch a bit. Don't take the whole thing, it's impossible, but we'll have a little stake. We can be king in Holland for 2 hours, we can be king in Germany for 2 hours, we can run the marketplace in Dusseldorf. And it's going out there. It's not the supporter obviously thinking they're going to hang on forever, it's the supporter wanting to get a bit of fame, wanting to get a little bit of territory, be there. And the more sacred that territory is, the better in many ways. I'm not saying they're going to go desecrate statues or nothing like that. Not yet, that hasn't happened. But yeah, it's letting people know the Brits are coming. Lock up your doors and all that sort of thing.
Oslo, 1993. 17 English fans destroy a bar when the local police tell them not to drink outside in the street. The result? 17 English fans arrested and deported back to England. 2 years later, Oslo is on red alert. It is history in reverse, as the capital of the Vikings waits in fear of a more modern phenomenon. The English football fans are coming.
What do you think of English fans?
Oh, they're horrible.
I must admit they're not the best supporters, you know, they can be naughty and that, but it's the press, you find that the press are waiting for something to happen. And so, as soon as something does happen, then they do take it, they do make the most of it.
Yes, if you see what happened in '93 at a pub near here. So it was 17 English supporters who destroyed the pub. So don't take the risk this year, I think.
Are you an English hooligan? That's the first thing they say to you. And after a night of it, you got fed up with it. Are you an English hooligan? Are you an English hooligan? Yeah, I mean, what they've been reading in the papers.
On the news and television, they warned the Norwegian supporters of the English supporters because they were dangerous and they could beat you and everything like that.
They are totally different from the Norwegian fans. So, I mean, I think they're scared of them.
Though they don't condone its overzealous relationship with the sport, there are those that have studied football hooliganism worldwide to understand it and trace its roots.
The only loyal people are the supporters. And I will say that this is a new element, a new aspect. And this does not explain violence, but this explains commitment, loyalty,
exactly,
and excess, perhaps, in some situations. And the supporters are suffering, you know, traveling, long travelings, poor hotels, not good food, they are not paid. You see, they represent precisely, I mean, the passion, the romantic side of the game.
And a message to the English supporters today: you have to go to Gate 0. That's Gate 0 for English supporters, and that's on the right side of Gate 1.
As the evening kick-off nears, there are 300 loyal England supporters and 800 Norwegian police and soldiers in Oslo for the so-called friendly between Norway and England. It is the last time England will travel before Euro 96. For the Norwegian football authorities, it is the most difficult and controversial match to take place in Europe in 1995.
When I look around me here, I've never seen conditions like this at a Norwegian football match, at a football match in Norway ever. And there's always a danger when you guard yourself too much that it will be sort of interpreted as an act of aggression from you know, the fans who come here.
Yeah, and those railings, you've never seen the railings, and,
no.
And other people told me they've never seen so many police around. I didn't know there were that many police employed.
I came from the centre of town and I didn't see one English. Well, I saw a couple of English supporters, but I saw maybe 100 police cars around and horses and everything. So it looks as if it might be exaggerated, but they are really deadly scared, of course, both the Football Association and the police, that they will be prepared in case it happens. So they will have the sort of maximum security system in alert. So.
And there's no doubt that the way the media cover the national team in England provides a great weight of expectation and historical baggage. You know, in some ways, in England, the team is read as the nation itself. What happens to the team and how the team performs somehow signifies the fate of the nation. That's why when England were knocked out of the World Cup a few years ago, the headline said, "End of the world." And I think sometimes, you know, we try and compensate or expect to compensate through the performance of the national team for things that have happened to us more widely in the world, our decline and loss of influence and power. And if we get beat by countries that we don't think we're supposed to get beat by, that's just another sign of how far we've sunk.
The Norwegians are anxious there is not a repeat of the sinister and darker side of English support that caused so much trouble at Lansdowne Road, where English fascist extremists left their mark on Irish supporters and their Combat 18 calling card in political defiance to the IRA.
There's no pretenders in Combat 84. It's a kind of initiation kind of organisation. Frightening. It's more than football hooliganism. Football hooliganism is the tip of the iceberg. Fighting for God to a lot of the bonehead members, but it's, yeah, they're primed as well. They get given freebies, they get given trips to Europe, they get trained as rifle rangers, they get given this, that and the other. They're all readers of Survival magazine. They know this, that and the other. They know the history of the Wehrmacht. Wehrmacht wouldn't pay that much attention to. They know the SS philosophy, etc. The artists Mark to deal with, although there's only a couple hundred diehards.
With the English history and everything as a, you know, a great empire, I believe that they are out, you know, they see violence as a perfectly legitimate way of defending the great old traditions of England. That's, you know, they're willing to fight for the country like any other soldier. And that's the logic I think you need to get a grip of if you are to understand them. I mean, I'm not saying that it's that it should be legal to do it, by no means, but that's how a supporter, probably most supporters would see it, really.
Plainclothes police are on the lookout for known troublemakers and successfully detain them before the kick-off. The press pack are there en masse too, in eager anticipation of trouble. But the official England Supporters Club have organised the expensive flights, together with match tickets to minimise potential problems.
No, this is the price on the ticket.
But ticket touts will always defeat the best-made plans for safer crowd segregation.
I was worried last night about tickets because I didn't have one, but I've been down to the ground today and I've managed to get all the free tickets.
Huh?
Yeah, no. It is for the Norwegian end of the ground. But no problems with that, so no. I mean, I'm not going to start causing no trouble in the Norwegian end.
The match ended up as a no-score-bore draw that sent the fans to sleep long before they set off home to bed. The million-kroner police operation turned out just like the action on the pitch. An anti-climax.
You know, English supporters become a target wherever they go, because if you want to measure your powers sort of physically or violently, then the English boys will sort of be the ones to judge your own power up against. And if you can beat the English, then you're the best. That's very much how that sort of fan logic operates, I think.
And I imagine with the police is the same. I imagine that we always discuss, I mean, how supporters perform violence, but we never discuss how police also can perform violence, and that in fact action, I mean, it's very important for a police officer.
The Chelsea firm is proud to have one of the worst reputations. When they travelled to Belgium in 1995 in the European Cup Winners' Cup, they also attracted non-Chelsea troublemakers in some kind of alliance.
I mean, our problem has always been that when our supporters travel particularly, they all look much of a muchness. They look like young men, they look like a large army of supporters. They like to drink, they like to get very boisterous and lively, and sometimes they like to get violent.
The activities of the Barmy Army have hitherto prevented European tournaments on these shores and led to the banning of our clubs from European competition.
We were doing very, very well in Europe. At one particular stage, we'd have one of the Premier clubs in the final virtually every other year, which was excellent, or a semi-final. But then when we got the ban, because of these hooligans that had caused so much trouble that FIFA had to ban us, then we were now losing out, because obviously our top teams were not performing in Europe, playing against the big Spanish clubs, the big Italian clubs, big Portuguese clubs, with the internationals inside those particular teams. So now these clubs were developing different skills, different ways of playing, but we were losing out because we weren't playing against, they were all playing against each other in Europe. We were banned out of it. So we were losing out because we weren't seeing them play, and we weren't attuned with their game. And it was a dreadful time, because this is when England couldn't qualify for the World Cup. We were lagging way behind everybody, and it was a big wrench at that particular time, which obviously it did knock us back quite considerably.
Even when they were allowed back, high spirits and drunkenness have often been interpreted as hooliganism by the less than softly soccer cops. The result? Bruises in Bruges and deportation before even seeing the match. trouble seems to revolve around the English supporters whenever and wherever they go abroad.
We had that in Poland, and there was police in green, police in black, police in blue. There were different coloured vans, and the escort from the ground to the town after the game was unreal. There were water cannons waiting, and there must have been, for every England fan, there must have been 3 policemen. And it was intimidating, But I don't know what it is. There was still trouble. There was still, even though there was that much police presence, there were still skirmishes, you know. So if England fans are going to fight, they'll find somewhere, you know.
When I arrived in Italy, I mean, you know, when I turned up at the station, one of the funny things that happened to me was that I walked into one of the cafes in the station, and this guy turned around to me and he goes, "Hooligan?" You know, so and what it turns out was there was a real expectation that all English football supporters were hooligans, and it had been portrayed in the media that the English were coming to destroy the city and that they were going to have real problems with English supporters, and everybody was expecting those kind of problems from English supporters, including the police. The majority of English supporters out there were there to enjoy Italy, to enjoy the World Cup finals, to enjoy the football, but they were consistently and systematically treated in really illegitimate ways by the police, because the police were effectively expecting violence from them. I mean, we were pushed around, we were treated in really threatening ways. On the second day that I was there was a group of English supporters that were drinking in a bar on the Via Roma, which is the main street in Cagliari, just singing football songs and generally behaving in you know, normal ways for English football supporters, singing, drinking, laughing and chatting. There was no real violent intent there, and that was certainly the feeling of the people who were involved in that. And during the evening, they were battery charged by Italian police. When we arrived there, English supporters were on the whole anti-violence and anti-causing trouble, and people that they saw being conflictual, they wanted to distance themselves from. But because they were treated in indiscriminately aggressive ways by the police and treated in ways that they saw to be out of order, they, by the end of the tournament, came to see themselves in the same category, in the same social group as the violent supporters, and saw violence against the police as something legitimate. And in actual fact, they didn't see conflict against the police as violence, they saw it as self-defence.
The English are still regarded as the top boys in Europe, and when you're at the top, everyone below you wants to knock you off the perch. These Spanish fans from Real Zaragoza attacked Arsenal fans in Paris before the Cup Winners' final, with the gendarmes in no man's land.
Well, if you go to places like Germany or Holland, then it gets a bit different, I think. They tend to turn out a lot more, like in Rotterdam. I was there when that, what is it, some type of tennis ball with some explosive inside it. I went in the bar, I was further up the street, and you could see what were happening all day. The Dutch were going round, walking around all day, and more were congregating. And people were saying that they knew what was going to happen, and the New England fans would get blamed for it. I mean, I must admit, a lot of England fans, there is, you know, some nasty people, but so everyone wants to have a go at England. So I think a lot of the Europeans think England are the best.
Thankfully, the vast majority of supporters are intent on avoiding the traps abroad. A coach trip to Lyon in support of Nottingham Forest is an excuse for 3 days with the lads, and so much to drink that there is a good chance of missing the first half because you're too pissed.
The guy who's in the toilet's been in long enough. If he wants to get out and walk and get some fresh air, he's welcome. Or we'll lock him in the toilet for the remainder of the journey, after he's cleaned his sick up. What a mess.
And under the influence of alcohol, a gendarme motorbike escort for the coaches can be viewed as special treatment similar to royalty, as opposed to almost a prisoner armed guard. But the foot soldiers of Frankie Clark's Red and White Army are here to cheer. They are the only British team left in Europe, and they want it to remain that way.
There's people stabbed in Italy, aren't there, at football games? There's riots going on. They're letting flares off and bombs off at the ground. It's happening all the time, but nobody does anything. I think because England is an island, you can isolate us, can't you? You can ban us, whereas Italy, you can't. People just get on a train and go across the border. So I think we're just picked on. I know we had a reputation in the past of causing trouble, but it was no worse than anybody else. The Dutch fans, the Germans are just the same. You can provoke trouble by interfering too much. If you leave people alone, nobody sets out to cause trouble. There's the odd few that are in here. But most people just want to go to the football match, have a few beers before the game, and that's it. And nobody created any problems. There was the only incident there was the police overreacted to something that had happened in a bar and ended up beating one bloke over the head and putting him in hospital, and he was a Nottingham plainclothes police officer who were there to, keep an eye on the game. So it shows you how they can, misconstrue the situation.
Even the Forest fans got into trouble in Germany in the next round, when about 60 fans in a bar clashed with police before the Bayern Munich game.
You want, Jim? 20 pills that and a shot of scotch, please, one.
There are not many Scots who don't like a drink, or 2 or 3. All right, twist his arm, and he'll have another 4. Like the Englishmen, their boisterous drunkenness is often interpreted abroad as potential trouble. To add insult to injury, they are often mistaken as Englishmen and get tarred with the same sporran.
Jim, 290, please. Thanks very much.
We had 3 buses, the riot police escort, motorcycle outriders, and blue lights flashing. Off we went to the stadium, not drawing any attention to the fact that there were Scotland supporters. No, we could have went in the buses and nobody would have known any different. We were then driven to a fenced-off pen about a quarter of a mile away from the stadium. The kick-off was about 8 o'clock. We were still stood there at 8 o'clock and getting a bit anxious we were going to miss the start of the game, for no apparent reason to us. And surrounding us was armed guards. They looked like Roman centurions with machine guns. This was the Greek sort of mentality to football behaviour, and I suppose they have a point because there's been a lot of violence in that sort of area. But they marched us off. They marched us off to the stadium eventually. We got in there about 10, 15 minutes late. But before that, the Greek fans were baying us behind fences, and some of the fans at the top of the stadium decided that, oh, they obviously don't have any seats to take in with them, let's throw our seats at them. And they pelted us with seats.
The Tartan army couldn't even stop for a pint of heavy in Athens, and their whiskey chaser turned out to be the police in hot pursuit. When they went to Russia, there was no love lost there either.
And my mate Robert got shipped away by the police just for playing the bagpipes, standing on a wee concrete post.
Aye.
But they let him back out because we all started singing like the Police song.
Everybody stood up when the police arrested him, dragged him down the stairs, and all of a sudden everybody stood up, and all these Russian policemen with their batons. Oh, good. This is going to be good. They were just waiting for us to do something.
As Hitler called us, we're the fighting ladies from hell.
Yeah.
But we've lost that.
But we were diplomatic.
No, it's the friendly ladies from hell.
They decided they were onto a losing battle and put the Piper back in, and we sat down again, so everything was fine.
And the Scots abroad have a very good reputation. They're welcome, they're not known for causing trouble. In fact, they shape themselves in response to the international image of the English. They're desperate not to be identified as English when they're abroad, so they become exaggeratedly well-behaved. And the only general exception to that rule seems to be when they play England, and when they play in England.
Since 1989, the police and the football authorities have banned the annual England-Scotland game because the fixture has caused too much trouble on the terraces.
it went off as soon as we got there, like, or right through the town. There was big running battles there, windows going through and that. And we got close to Hampden Park, and there was a big park with a fence. We were going up past the park, and a load of jocks come running across. Hibs, I think they were. That was the rumour, that they were Hibs. There was us, Sheffield United, Northampton, a couple of other teams. There was only about 50 of us, there was loads of them. They were jumping over the fence and getting, and then the coppers just swarmed. I mean, if you got picked out, you're unlucky. You got locked up there.
Did you get unlucky?
I was unlucky. I was only 16 at the time.
Didn't run quick enough.
Well, you couldn't run really. Well, I suppose you could, but we're Carlisle, aren't we? We don't run. Especially against the jocks.
Just going off everywhere.
The year after, Hampden 87, England, it used to be home and away then, and we were going down to Wembley, and we had a big kick-off in a service station, because we're the most northern club going down the M6. It was full of tartan divvies, you know what I mean, full of all the jocks. First survey we had, there was like 20 odd of us in a van and just went off to fuck, like. We all got locked up. Well, there was 9 of us, I think, eventually that went to jail, and there was over 20 years dished out, like. I got 2.5 years, I was only 17. That was a good frisk. There was no police on out, like. I'd done 2 years out of it, you know, just for fucking about inside. Didn't get parole. I lost 3 months. Should have done 20 months. I'd done 23.5. That was a good day, like.
Now fate and the Euro 96 draw has put Scotland and the old enemy in the same group, and there isn't much chance of a policeman's holiday in June.
The Scottish supporters ripped down our goal, broke the crossbar, ripped the nets off, and the commentator said it was exuberance of the Scots. And there's our Wembley being desecrated by those people. At times, Scottish team was great, but that moment, nearly every football hooligan of an English nationality remembers that time. They've never forgiven Scotland for that. And whilst we don't have the Glasgow accent and all that, you know, where we don't have the kind of the diazepam fucking spirit there, we've got memories there because we remember our shrine being rent and we hadn't paid that back.
I think that the one game in these European Championships that the FA and the police are quite worried about is the England-Scotland game, because the game hasn't been played for the past 7 or 8 years on advice from the police and on advice from both FAs.
Their fans are very much like us, from the heart.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they had as bad a team as us, they wouldn't be as passionate supporters, would they?
Nah, they wouldn't follow them as much, I don't think.
Oh.
But just one victory. This is the victory we're looking for in June the 15th. That'll do us. That's our European Championship. Whatever happens,
we don't care if we get knocked out. First round, come bottom, as long as we beat England.
It doesn't matter if it's football, rugby, tiddlywinks, table tennis, water polo, anything. Scotland versus England is the total
be-all and end-all.
Be-all and end-all, my Uncle Jim would say here. That is the business.
There's no real Scottish temperament that means that they're going to go out and cause trouble. It's just the game against the old enemy. It's the way that they look at it, the way that they see. If you look at past history between England and Scotland, Scotland has been subjugated to English will since the 17th century, and it's their way of sort of saying, you know, we are Scots, we are proud, you know, we will not sort of bow down to the English Sassenachs.
Here's Stairs. Here's Scotland. Here's Lakers. Wembley, 96.
Are you watching? Are you watching? Are you watching Arsenal? Come on, Wanderers! Come on, Wanderers! Come on, Wanderers! What do you think of Arsenal? Shit! What do you think of shit? Arsenal! Are you watching Arsenal?
Euro 96 means that England will once again be invaded by the Romans, Saxons and Normans, as well as the Picts. 8 cities will play host to 15 different nationalities of football supporters for the first time in 30 years. Hitherto, The facilities provided by our stadiums, together with the reputation of our fans, have not been good enough. Now the authorities and the police are at battle stations to ensure football fan behaviour does not get out of order.
Hang on, mate, we're meeting, we're having a drink. Okay, well,
This is the kind of close attention football supporters in England can expect today.
Against Sunderland.
Some of them are really bad.
Last season when we were walking down Warwick Road, like towards the ground, there was two coppers walking behind us, kicking our feet, and that's how we turned around and said something to them so they could lock us up. So like we had to go around the back street too. Last season, when we were doing well, we had a few lads going away and that, and the police were always one step ahead of us. We didn't have a clue it was. When we went to Wembley for that cup, we went to Southend for the night, and we kept it to ourselves kind of thing. As soon as we pulled into Southend off the motorway, there was two mounties waiting, the place was full of coppers. All stressed out. There's a local cop around here, he's on the football intelligence craft, and he's a total wonker. Once it goes off, he's right in going off his head. He's like Thug off that programme. What was that programme? Police programme? Oh my God. Thug, he was like Thug, wasn't he? Double of him, stressed out nuts. Like you walk down the street, maybe a few of you's going out of the game or whatever, and he'll wade in and just pick on someone and arrest them for now. Start going off his head and shaking them about. It's pure clown.
The home side would have the advantage that they know all the back streets, they know the infrastructure of the area, they know where the opposition's coming in, they know, where they get corralled, where they get escorted. And now you've got a lot of scattering, a lot of fans around arriving at the games, hooligans and otherwise, in smaller units. And that means the police and law enforcement officers, they've got a problem there.
We were in a pub called The Crown, and Wigan had got into the town centre without getting sussed by the police. They were in a pub called Mary's Chambers. There was a police van full of coppers outside Mary's Chambers and one outside The Crown. So we thought, we knew they were there and they knew we were there, so we're like on leashes kind of thing, but we knew the police. All of a sudden the police disappeared. You know what I mean? So thickies, we all marched up, come on, it went off. But in the back of my mind I was thinking, they knew we were there, they knew what had happened. There has to be a camera on it, like, and I was expecting my door coming in 2 weeks later, but no, it happened. I couldn't believe it. They had us both pinned, they knew where we were, then they disappeared.
And
I thought,
any magic
stitch up, you know what I mean, but now it come of it.
This is the side of football support you won't see on Match of the Day. The police have a difficult job, and they err on the side of caution, with safety in numbers to keep the rival fans apart. But doesn't their mass presence in turn intimidate the fans to the point of provocation?
I think the first step in proposing a solution is to understand the real nature of the situation and the fact that if we expect violence to happen, that can have some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, and it will lead the police to expect public order situations, develop their policing tactics in order to deal with them, but in applying those tactics actually create the public order problems that they're trying to avoid. We have to be more sensitive in how we police crowds, particularly crowds of English football supporters. I mean, Hillsborough is a prime example. The police saw it as a public order situation when in actual fact it was a public safety situation, and the police need to be more sensitive to the extent to which they see all crowd situations as potential public order problems and start seeing their role in the creation of violence, and the need to be more sensitive and more discriminate in the way that they police English people and other foreign people when they're coming here to watch games of football. We're not out to create violence. We're actually as much against that kind of violence as they are, and we don't need to be treated in hostile ways.
The police may have fortified the grounds and driven trouble from the terraces, but it has now become trouble in the car park, trouble at the railway station, at the motorway service centre, and in the public bar of the local hostelry. Get tough action by the police has meant that the English boys behave badly abroad rather than at home. There may be greater concern if England qualify for the 1998 World Cup in France than for staging Euro 96.
Please, gents, make your way to the ground.
In a sense, though, I mean, if the choice was between having England playing in a major tournament that was easily reachable across the channel and hosting the tournament here, I think from a safety and security point of view, then it's better to have it here.
But is it more than a game? Are the hooligan minority unstoppable? Police action has concentrated on the bigger games, but merely driven hooliganism down the league tables. Nearly every town in Britain has its own version of Paul Dodd. 25, unemployed, father of a small baby living with his fiancée in a small council house, and hero worshipped by his followers in the Border City firm, following Carlisle United. On a bad day, they can raise 30. On a good day, 150. 27 of the firm are currently banned from football grounds, but still they live for when Saturday comes. Or they surface for Euro 96.
Most of us are barred anyhow. I've got a ban at the moment, banned from all football grounds in the country till August. So you can't go in anyhow, but you still go away and just sit in the town, have a drink, and if there's anyone there, it goes off to it. Most of our lads are banned. We wouldn't have got. I'm banned, but I wouldn't have got a ticket anyhow. There'll be like gold dust going there. Just go down wherever we're playing, sit in the boozes. Just go for a drink and that, I think that's what the majority of the lads will be doing.
The FA have used a strategy to take the game out of that trough that it was in part to aim it at a new kind of audience. And I think that they'll be hoping in the establishment here that that will be reflected in the kinds of audiences that watch England during these championships. And that will reflect generally the changes which have occurred in the Premier League. But of course, the great patriotic passion of supporting England, which sometimes spills over into violence, may not be there in quite the same kind of way, because tickets are even being sold for matches before you know who plays. They're saying, you know, be part of the event, buy a ticket in advance and find out who you're going to see later. But secondly, what is interesting is the way in which the English have marketed this. There's this notion of the game coming home.
Past European championships have involved trouble with the English, and the police and the football authorities will have their hands full in '96. It's not only the England-Scotland game that is worrying officials.
To come to England to test the English, you would have to be very, very well prepared, and you will have to come in numbers. Mostly, it has to be said, when there have been serious problems recently in these tournaments, they've revolved around the presence of the English. I think that's the key to understanding what these events are about. It's not that the English are always causing the trouble, but incidents are provoked around their presence, either to show them what other countries can do or as a response to another incident. I think the advantage of having the finals here is that England to people with this kind of view from the continent can still appear to be a forbidding place.
The Europeans are often more violent than the English on their own turf. For instance, the civil war in former Yugoslavia actually started on the terraces of the football grounds before exploding into a 4-year bloody conflict.
The police in this country have been warned of one supporters group called the Big Blue Boys, whom the Croatian police are actually quite worried about. It's difficult, again, it's difficult to gauge. There will be intelligence held on groups such as these. The one thing about Turkey is, I can say is that thank God that they're not based in Manchester. With Manchester United's recent games against Galatasaray over the last 5 years, the troubles that they encountered over in Turkey, if the Turks were actually based in Manchester, I would definitely see trouble occurring there. The Turks are very expressive about their football. They like perhaps like the Italians, they like to light fires on terraces, let off flares, and it's the sort of thing that they do at home. Of course, they won't be allowed to do here. The Italian supporters, rather like the French, are very fanatical about their football. They're the most organised groups of supporters in Europe. They have each team has a group called the Ultras attached to them, who are very, very powerful. They're not like supporters clubs in Britain. They can actually go in and argue with club chairmen, with the owners of the clubs about transfers, about results. There are one or two examples of splinter groups within these ultra groups that, who carry names like the Warriors and the Hawks, who are perhaps more violent than the others.
And this is what football support means in the Czech Republic. These Hungarian fans were taught a harsh lesson by the Czech Republic commandos, who seem to be more camera shy than baton shy, with their balaclavas on. Or perhaps the military out there feel the cold more than the civilians. The authorities, of course, blamed the fans for starting the trouble. This incident was ignited when the referee awarded a controversial penalty in a Spanish Cup semi-final.
If you were going to pick games that were really likely to cause problems, then the potential match between England and Germany is obviously a problem. But also, for historical reasons, Germany against Holland has caused difficulties in the past. In fact, it's one of the few fixtures which don't involve England, where trouble can be seen to be exported on quite a large scale. That when the Germans have played in Holland recently, there have often been problems, and when the Dutch have played in Germany, those problems have been reproduced. So again, for historical reasons, and because of the domestic problems in those two countries, rather really than the international problems, then that could be a difficult one, and the authorities will be hoping, I guess, that those two nations are not thrown together.
Yeah, we have different names, like it's Schalke 4, it's called the Gelsenkirchen. It's Eintracht Frankfurt, it's called the Adler Front, and it's Munich is called Service Crew, and Nuremberg is called the Red Devils.
And there's about 40 Germans, they just beat us up like...
You weren't looking for trouble or...?
No. Well, there was only two of us.
When I came out, I was attacked by a load of sort of German boys. Who was responsible for it? German boys that attacked me.
Normally it's only Holland, which we don't really like.
They don't like England, though, do you?
No, they don't like... I mean, they like England, but they respect England as well, you see. No one hates England, really.
What was going
it's
to
only
happen?
because England is number one, and Germany is number 2, and so the Germans try to go number 1, and they will show it to the English.
We have to remember that a club side in Manchester does have 3 Germans playing for them, so they will probably get a lot of support from the blue side of the city, maybe not so much from the red side of the city. They will be here en masse. I think there'll be a heck of a lot of Germans actually coming over here.
But we will see from the Dutch, certainly, and from other supporters, a sense of carnivalesque that we don't often see from the English. You know, for some reason, the Dutch like to dress up as women. Dutch male fans, often very respectable male supporters, like to put on crazy outfits, get draped in orange dresses, females, wear very strange clothes for games. And they've got this sense of carnivalesque around support for the national team that we haven't quite got. Our sense of supporting the national team is still beer belly, tattoos, Union Jack shorts, you know, a pretty kind of aggressive sort of image. Abroad, that's much less the case.
Euro 96 has a direct implication in the daily life of over 1 million of persons who live in Britain and in England and who are citizens of the other competitors. So how will my children be treated by their friends if there is a problem in the match between France and England?
As good as plans to stage the games may be, to cope with 16 nations on the terraces,